What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode. All right, this is going to be your introduction to TradingView. All right, so if you're just getting started, you're just looking to get into day trading, and you're looking to learn the basics, what I want you to do is I want you to go to Google, search up TradingView. It's going to be the first option that does pop up. All right, when you do click that, you are going to see this screen pop up. What you're going to do is you're going to create a free demo account, right? Once you create a free demo account, all right, you're going to see a page like this pop up where it is going to be a chart of live data, all right? So even though it is a demo account, this is still live data on all your pairs except for any future pairs, all right? So if you did want to trade futures with me, you will have to buy an account, you will have to buy a subscription. All right, and we could get into the different subscriptions moving forward in a different video if you guys are interested. All right, but this is for you newbies, those who don't have any idea what the candlesticks mean, what a chart looks like, what it means, what you are looking at. When you open up this chart, you're like, dude, this is a different language to me. I've never seen something like this before. I have no idea what any of this means. That is what I'm making this video for you guys right now, okay? So when you open up the chart, this is exactly what you're gonna see, all right? What I first want to introduce to you guys, right, is what these things are. So what you're gonna see is a bunch of rectangular objects with some lines on the tops and the bottoms, all right? So what does each one of these represent? One of those is a candlestick, all right? So over here, what do candlesticks mean? All right, you're going to have different time frames. All right, the different time frames are going to be located right here at the top of the screen. Okay, you are going to see anything from a year all the way down to months, weeks, days, hours, and even minutes, even seconds if you wanted to go into that quick of data. All right, so the time frames that I specifically use, all right, and what you're going to do is you're going to click the star button to favorite these time frames. All right, so what I use the day chart, 4 hour chart, 1 hour chart, 15 minute, 5 minute, and 1 minute. Okay, so once you favorite all of those, they will be located right here at the top of the screen for you to toggle through, so you don't have to go through the drop menu every single time you're looking to change your chart view. All right, you could also use the keypad, but that's a little bit more advanced. I'll get into that a little bit later on. Okay, so each one of these candlesticks represents a time frame. Okay, so right now we are currently on the daily chart. All right, so each one of these candlesticks represents a day of price action or a day of data. Okay, so each one of these will obviously have their own meaning, right? You see a bunch of green and red, and what you're probably thinking is correct, right? Anytime you see a green candlestick, what does that mean? It means there are more buy orders being filled or opened rather than sell orders, and vice versa. When you see a red candle, that it is more sell orders over buy orders at that current time, whichever time frame you are looking at, okay? So for each day where you see a red candle, there were more sell orders during that day than buy orders, and vice versa when you see a green candle, okay? Same thing on the 4 hour chart, 1 hour chart, so on and so forth, right? So my chart layout, right? So this might be a little confusing for you, all right? It's very tough on the psychology, in my opinion. I have been doing this for 6 years now, all right? It took me about 5 years of trial and error, mastering my own strategy and perfecting it in order to see real profitability, real results, all right? So what I did to my chart just to make it a little bit less stressful on my mind, on my psychology, and on my eyes, what I did is I opened up this setting tab right here at the top. All right, what you're going to do is you're going to see a bunch of different setting options. We're going to start with the symbol or the candlestick layout. Okay, so you're going to see body, borders, and wicks. Make sure they are all clicked and checked off. You don't want to turn any of these options off. Okay, you want to see all three of these. All right, for any type of buy candles, what I do instead of green, right? I pick blue. Why? Because green, you're automatically assuming profit, and red, you're automatically assuming loss, which isn't necessarily the case when it comes to day trading, right? You can make money on probability of upward movement or downward movement, all right? This is not buying tangible stocks. This is not hoping that price only moves up. You have opportunity to sell the market and make money on the probability of price moving down just as much as you have the opportunity of capitalizing on the price moving up. Okay. So the only ones that I keep all black are the wicks. All right. And I'll get into that a little bit later. It is a little bit easier to see when they are all blacked out. Okay. So now that you see the background, obviously some of the candlesticks are blending in, right? So what you want to do, let me make this black first. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to go over to your canvas option. All right, you're going to make sure the background is solid, right? You don't want gradient. You want a solid color, right? And what I do is I make the background white. All right, this amplifies all of the data on each candlestick. You're easily able to see where the body is open, where they close, any type of wick rejections, and you could see the top and the bottom very clearly without anything blending in to any background or anything in the background. Okay, that's why we use a solid white canvas. So it is very easy to mark everything out, very easy to see everything. So we're not getting confused, we're not getting disorganized, so on and so forth. All right. So ticker symbols. All right. What is a ticker symbol? A ticker symbol is what you are going to be trading. Okay. So my ticker symbol is micro gold futures. All right. Or MGC. It's 2026. So you are going to do MGC Z 2026. All right. If you wanted to trade minis, it is going to be GCZ 2026. All right. If you wanted to trade the American stock or XAU USD, that is exactly what you would plug in here. All right. And you will actually favorite it as well. And you could put it on your watch list so it never disappears. So you could always refer back to it if you ever do go to look at a different chart. Okay. So we're going to be using micro gold futures as a demonstrator right now. All right. That is what I like to trade. So that is what I will be most emphasis on when it comes to teaching you guys on how to maximize your opportunity, how to learn how to read price action, and so on and so forth. Okay. So we are going to emphasize some time frames right now. Okay, so what like I said earlier, I like to use the daily chart, 4-hour chart, 1 hour, 15-minute, 5-minute, and 1 minute. Okay, each one of these are going to have their own story, right? Like I said, each one of these candlesticks represents a certain time frame, right? So each one of these candlesticks will represent a day on the daily chart. On the 4-hour, each one of these candlesticks will represent 4 hours of data, so on and so forth, right? 1 hour, 15-minute, 5-minute, and 1 minute for even up close and personal data in live time. Each one of these candlesticks on the 1 minute chart will represent 1 minute of data. Okay. So why do I use these? I use the higher time frames to give me overall price action, overall trend lines, right? So it's very easy on the daily chart to see and mark out all of these highs and lows, right? So if I come over here and I break out my brush tool, I'm going to mark out each one of these highs, right? Here's a high, here's a high, here's a high, and here's a high, right? So what do I notice within these last 4 highs, right? They're in a continuous downward momentum, right? Each one of these highs are lower than the previous high that was formed, right? What is that indicating? That is indicating we are in a bearish market, right? Or we are selling off in price. Price does not want to move up. Price wants to continue lower, right? So when price wants to continue lower and it is showing us lower highs after one another, what are we going to be doing? We're going to be looking for sell positions, so on and so forth. When it comes to vice versa, when price is moving higher, it's going to give us higher highs than the previous highs created, higher lows than the previous lows created, right? So that is your perfect indication of a trend. And that's why we use the higher time frames, because it is much easier to read overall trends on the higher time frames rather than the 1 minute or lower time frames, right? When you see lower time frames, you typically see something like this where it's not a very clear indication of overall trend, right? So we use high time frames for overall trend or and high resistance liquidity, which I will get into later on as well. But that is why we use high time frame versus low time frame. Okay. So those are the ones I use. Get familiar with them, and I will be diving into which each one of them mean, why they are individualized rather than just using one time frame of data, and why it is important to swap back and forth between the few that when you are trading, right? And like I said, how to set favorites, you're just going to click these stars. Make sure that the stars are highlighted for you so you make sure that they are favorites. And once they are highlighted, they will be listed right here on top. So you don't have to use this drop down menu with all the options here for you. You could just focus on the ones that you like to use. All right. So getting into some tools that are mandatory for me when I'm trading on a daily basis, right? These are my tool selections on the left-hand side here, all right? When you click into the trend lines over here, you're going to see a bunch of different line tools. I like to use the horizontal ray to mark out my highs and my lows, right? This is giving me clear indication that the trends are either moving up or moving down, right? So what I'm going to do too, once I click the horizontal ray, I'm also going to make sure this magnet icon is highlighted. This is going to emphasize that point of interest where that top wick or that bottom wick lies. So it's very precise. You want to be precise when marking out these highs and lows. You don't want to make any type of mistakes. You don't want to be off, even if it is a slight point or two, because I promise you it is going to mess you up. It's going to get you discombobulated, and you're going to be looking for something that will never come because you marked it out wrong. All right. So again, make sure that your magnet is emphasized so everything is precise there for you. All right. Once all your highs and lows are marked out, you can change the color if you like. I like to use black, right? When I'm using the overall day charts. If I'm going into the lower time frames, that is when I'm going to be looking for more different trading session highs and lows. And different trading session highs and lows, you have 3 trading sessions in the day. You have New York trading session, which is 9 to 5 Eastern Standard Time. You have London trading session, which is 2 to about 7:30 or 8 Eastern Standard Time in the morning. And you also have Asia session, which is about 6 o'clock to 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, PM to AM, okay? So for Asia session highs and lows, I like to use the color red for my horizontal rays. And for London session, I like to use blue for my horizontal rays, marking out my highs and lows. This just keeps me a little bit more organized when looking at the charts as price action continues to print throughout the day. I personally trade New York session, so I like to trade anywhere from 9 in the morning to right before lunchtime. If I don't end up getting a trade before then, I will take a look in the afternoon session from 1 to 5 for any potential opportunities, okay? So what you can do is you're going to use a vertical line to mark out these different trading sessions, right? So again, 9 o'clock, you'll mark out New York session. I like to use the color red, 1x point, and I like to use a dashed line, okay? I like to use a dashed line because when you mark these out, it's going to overlap a candle, and you don't want that wick to blend in with that market open line, okay? So that is very important. Make sure it is 1 point and dashed so it's not blending in with any type of price data, okay? Because you don't want to get confused, you don't want to get mixed up, and you don't want to get disorganized, all right? So you're going to mark out the 9 o'clock candle. You're also going to mark the 1800 candle, okay? Or the 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time candle. That is Asia session open. And you're also going to mark out the 2 a.m. candle. Okay, so that 2 a.m. candle is going to be your London open session. All right, this will be overnight trading for us on the East Coast in the United States. All right, but it is very important to mark it out so you can see what happens overnight while we are sleeping, because usually more times than not, price wants to revisit any type of point of interest that was created in the overnight session or in Asia session. Okay. So now that you have your different sessions marked out, you could use these horizontal lines. You could mark out any types of highs and lows, right? So in London session, we get this low. Again, I mark it blue. We get this high, right? I mark it blue. For for Asia session, we get, for New York session, we get this high. I mark it black. And we also get this low. And I mark it black for New York session. All right. For Asia session, we get this high. I mark it red. And we also get this low, and I also mark that red as well. Okay. Boom. Just like that. All right. So now this keeps me organized to know which highs and lows belong to which type of traders, right? Whether or not they're Asia traders, they are London traders, or New York traders. Each one of these sessions will have a ton of different traders entering the market. So each time you see a new session open, a bunch of new money will be fluctuating and flushing into the market, moving price in whatever direction each market maker in this specific time zone wants price to go. All right. So it is very important you stay organized, color coordinate everything just to make it a little bit easier on your head, so you're not getting any type of disorganized when it comes to marking out and following price action as price prints throughout the day. Okay. Okay. You can also mark out and chart out which ones these mean, right? So if you want to chart out these London highs and you want to make sure that you don't forget that this is London high, you can double tap the line, a text box will pop up, and you can say London high, right? And you can align it either at the top, the middle, or the bottom of the line. I like to put it at the bottom right. So every time I go and view it, it will always be right here for me, so I never forget what that current price or what that time zone meant in price action. Okay. So here, this blue line, I know moving forward, it is London high. I could do the same thing when it comes to London low. I just double tap on the line. The text box will come up and I will mark it out as London low, right? And again, it's already aligned to the bottom right, so it'll always be listed right here for me, so I never forget what that means, okay? This will always keep you organized. This will keep it much more clean to read. You're not going to get confused with yourself. Just try to keep your charts as clean as possible, because the more you mark out, obviously, the more it's easier to get confused and misunderstand your work, all right? So moving along. All right. Another big tool that I use is going to be the fair value box. All right. So what is a fair value gap and why do I mark these out so often? All right. Fair value gaps are imbalance in price. And what imbalance in price means, right? So you see here, we're on the 1 hour chart. You do see a huge spike up within an hour of data, right? What does that leave? That leaves an imbalance in price action. All right, so what is a fair value gap? Fair value gap consists of 3 consecutive candles. All right, 1, 2, and 3. That ends up leaving an imbalance or a gap in price, right? So you just come over here where your brush usually is. You're going to click this little side arrow, scroll down to the rectangle, and you're going to click on it. And again, make sure your magnet is on, because you want all these chartings and all these markings to be precise to the tenth of a dollar. Okay. You don't want anything to be off, because then your whole structure of your charting is going to be off as well. All right. So once you mark out, you're going to mark out from the top of that first wick to the bottom of that third wick, and you're going to drag it out. And that's going to show you that zone of imbalance, right? So once that zone of imbalance is marked out, you can drag it over, you could change it, you could add a text to it, right? So here, you want to make sure that it is clearly visible. It's not blocking anything. So what I actually like to do is I like to use teal because it doesn't blend in with any of the other colors. I don't like a background, but what I do like is I like to put a center line in here, right? So I'll go over to visibility or style. I mean, I will go to middle line, click and make sure it is checked. And I will also make that teal as well. All right. Again, no background, so nothing blends or fades with the candlesticks. And it is very easy to mark out and see where price is heading or what it's doing when it reacts to this zone, when it revisits it. All right. So fair value gaps are imbalanced in price. All right. You could use the rectangle tool right here to mark them out so you never forget. All right. You could even add it to your favorites so you never miss a beat. And you could easily click your favorites at the bottom here. They'll automatically pop up for you. All right. Your favorites will be listed right down here where you'll always be able to refer back to. All right. So that is your introduction to TradingView. I will get a little bit deeper into certain things, certain tools that I use, what kind of time frames I line up, and why I line these certain time frames up. All right, we will get into that in some later videos moving forward. All right, I love you guys. Thank you all for the support. Till next time, peace.